Okay, we're here in the wilds of the West Country. We're actually out at Real World Studios in Box, just outside Bath, at the rehearsal studios, which are in this big Nissan hut. Done a lot of production rehearsal. They've got a production facility in here. And the reason we're here is because some friends of ours, local Bath musicians of note, are putting together a project which is the Bowie Collective, or the Bowie Collective. They've got a gig on Saturday where what they do is it's like a Bowie tribute act, but it's on steroids. The amount of tech that they've gone to the point of recreating all the sounds. They re-record the entire recording so that they can get the sounds exactly right. There's a lot of really interesting technology going on here. Sympty sync, obviously some backing tracks, the vocal processing, the sound processing, and also some great visual stuff. We're just going to go in and meet Steve, who not only is Mr. Bowie himself in this particular act, but he's also the mastermind behind a lot of the technology behind it. So follow me. How are you doing?
Ah, Nick. How are you?
Not rehearsed at all, that. But speaking of rehearsal, which is a fantastic link, of course, this is the setup for the Bowie Collective.
Yeah.
What, 3 days out from the gig now? 2 days?
Yeah, I think we've got one kind of final run through of the show tonight, and then we've got another day tomorrow, tweaking a few little technicals and ironing out a few little crinkles and just generally improving things.
So what's the lineup? You've got drums, bass, couple of guitars?
Yeah, 2 guitars, drums and bass, and keys, playback.
Yeah.
We've also got a fantastic singer called Joe Nye, who we both know from years back, who's amazing, and a great saxophonist called Ben Waghorn.
I know Ben too.
Yeah.
Old jazzer.
Yeah, and so it's 8 of us.
Right, okay, and it's not just a simple matter of showing up, plugging in, doing this. You know, you're going for the full production. You've got visuals, you've got synced up stuff. You also gone to great lengths to actually recreate the sound of a lot of the original Bowie stuff. And for those of you who perhaps don't know, Steve is a highly accomplished producer and engineer, performer, all of those things. And he is Mr. Bowie as well on the night, with the wig and all of that stuff.
Would you believe
how's
it?
the scale pitch going?
Yeah, it's not too bad. I don't have time to think about that.
Fair enough.
I'm more worried about it falling off.
So, but what you've actually done is recreated the multi-tracks. You started off by just kind of like re-recording the records effectively. And did you do that across all of them or specific tracks? What have you...
It's a mixture. A lot of them we've gone in ourselves, you know, forensically, and done a lot of listening, and particularly on Heroes. We recreated it from the ground up, and we tried really hard to emulate not just to try and make the sound, but actually we tried to emulate the process. So we watched the Tony Visconti documentary very closely, where he was talking about what they did, and we were kind of, you know, just very carefully kind of watching and looking and listening. And so we ended up, you know, plugging a guitar into a synth and dicking around with the filters while the guitar was playing, and just kind of doing a lot of that kind of
forensic, all that forensic
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, really trying to the whole point of this show really was to try and do the records justice, because we always thought that even Bowie himself, when he played live, would quite often, he wouldn't appear to go to great lengths to be that concerned about reproducing the actual sounds from the records, and I would always miss that. You know, the records are so great. The work they did in the studio was so groundbreaking, and that process is so part of the final product that we thought we would be the people to please ourselves and try and make the actual live show not only be a good live show, but actually sound like the record.
Right.
And that's the mission.
Well, that sounds like quite challenging. I mean, we're actually here at the sort of the first of the big racks, so maybe if we could come in and have a look. So this is the keyboard station.
Yeah. So this is where our MD Simon Gwilliam lives, and this is his hollowed out piano. So you're getting a privileged view round the back.
So tell me what's going on. See, is that main stage there?
What we've got here is this is a control laptop. So this is this laptop is controlling 2 Cymatic multi-tracks, which we'll come to in a minute. And then we're looking at 2 computers here, both running main stage. So we've got a backup system.
Oh, so that's remote desktop connections to the...
Yeah, so we've got 2 Mac Minis in the rack, so that's all being addressed. So this computer isn't actually doing too much other than just talking to other stuff, and that's all networked in the back of the racks. So that's how he's talking to playback. That's how he's and also main stage is where he's getting his keyboard sounds from.
So you're just using, what's this, a Roland A88 controller?
Yeah, straight up
And
controller.
so the show's being run off Sonicstate, right? So there's a time code. So that's changing all of the sounds up. So he just needs to hit the right keys at the right time and play well, right?
Well, the one of the brilliant things about the U24s, there's two of them here.
Oh, they're the Cymatic, right? Okay.
Cymatic U24s, utterly brilliant, and I don't think we'd have been able to do this because the price point these come in at is workable for a startup project like ours, you know. And as well as playing 24 tracks of audio, you can also run a MIDI file. So when we build our sessions, what we also do is we build in program changes into a MIDI file. So we send out program changes to change the main stage patches. It also changes all my vocal effects at the right time in the right place. So it saves our front of house man Phil doesn't have to worry about changing all the vocal effects up. That all just happens.
Right.
And actually, as time goes on, we're building up layers. Now we're starting to send MIDI to one of the drum trigger units. So for example, on Sound and Vision, where we've got that amazing eventide pitch dropping,
the classic Tony Visconti.
So it means that we can lay some of those sounds back in, and it just, if we can just ping out MIDI and it just does all the program changes, it's just less for the players to think about, and they can look over, check the title comes up, and they're happy, and it's all happening. So
because I mean, ultimately, you know, the purpose of this is to put on a show, isn't it? You know, you've got a lot of people who are coming to kind of essentially see a Bowie tribute, and they want to see a theatrical spectacle as well, right?
Yeah, well, exactly, and we wanted to make it kind of like we wanted to make it as close to a real gig experience. So, you know, it is quite rock and roll. The band they're pretty rocking, and yeah, we're trying to make the technology kind of just be part of the show. Yeah. You know, trying to make it non-intrusive in some ways, but of course, because we are running, we've got Sonicstate Timecode running on one of the tracks of the U24s, which not only doubles as a kind of safety tone. So if the top U track fails, it'll flip over to the bottom U track. So the Sonicstate doubles up as a kind of 1K tone.
Oh, what are you using to do the actual failover switch?
Well, it does it. We're using a radial SW8.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so the Sonicstate coming out here on channel 7. So yes, that's just there. So yeah, if for some reason, if I go around, if we're playing back and I go around and just pull the mains from the top U track, the SW8 will flick over and the bottom U track will continue.
Right. Okay.
And so the Sonicstate is going out to the graphics computers. So we're running a software called Resolume, in which you can load all our clips in.
Because you've got big graphics. We'll have a look at that in a sec. It's awesome. They've made a mock-up of that as well. So in terms of what's going on the backing tracks, and obviously you've got a full band here, but there are certain things like, you know, that you're not going to be able to recreate live that easily.
Yeah.
So, you know, what kind of, I guess, certain backing vocal sounds, that sort of thing?
Certain backing vocals, orchestrations, and just kind of just where we've run out of hands, really. Right. You know, and it's just we wanted to make sure that nothing was missing, because I think with those records you just take away one part of the patchwork quilt and it's wrong, you know. So we would rather have it.
Yeah,
all there.
I suppose that's the thing. If you're doing an adaptation like Bowie would have done, then because it's completely different, nobody's going to go, oh, where's that little string thing that I missed?
Well, I think that's the thing. It's the same with. I mean, Bowie himself did it, and now in his absence, a lot of his kind of alumni. And a lot of other tributes are running shows as well. But particularly with the guys that used to play with Bowie, they have a certain carte blanche to say, well, we're the guys that played it, so actually we can do what we want because it's our show. So they're kind of allowed to do that.
Right.
But I think if you're like us and you're attempting to recreate it, I think it's our duty to kind of make sure everything is present and correct.
So in terms of the recording process, you presumably couldn't get hold of all of those sort of classic bits of kit from Hansa and all of that stuff. Yeah. Did you have to approximate? Would you plug? I mean, how did you recreate that stuff?
We're heavily dependent on quite a few plugins to get the sounds that we want. So a lot of it. When I'm building the tracks, I use BFD always as my. The first thing I'll do is I'll put the track up. I'll make a tempo map. I'll get a BFD kit up, I'll make the drum track, and
Yeah.
I'll make the tempo map. And a lot of the tempos move incredibly on those records.
Yeah.
They're all over the place. They don't just sit at one tempo
Sure.
like records do now. So we largely track that. Sometimes we'll flatten it out for the sake of people's sanity, but a lot of the time we track the tempo. So I use a lot of the UAD tape emulation and saturation and EQ plugins, and a lot of SPL, Transient Designer, a lot of Altiverb to create ambience and space. And
They've
even
probably got some
time
Hansa reflections in there, haven't they?
They've got Hansa.
Yeah, they've got Hansa. You're right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's lucky.
Well, I mean, if I was using Mainstage for my vocal effects, I'd have the Hansa impulse responses on there. But I'm using a TC guitar unit for all my vocal effects for this.
So, anything else going on in this rack that we should check out before? So, you've got failover on computer stuff.
We've got failover on playback. We've got failover on Mainstage. Yeah. And then down here, this is my vocal rack. So my 58 goes into a Focusrite producer pack, ISA 430, and then I'm adding quite a lot of top end in there, because the thing about Bowie's voice is that he had a huge high frequency content in his voice, and that's a very big part of his sound. So when I'm in the studio, I will quite often use an Avox plugin to add some breath, or I'll use the kind of very top band of an MC404 multi-band just to put that air in. But of course, when you do that live, you get a ton of S-age. So I've got a double MXR de-esser doing de-essing on de-essing to kind of help that. And that helps put that top air, that kind of part of the part.
Yeah,
of
well,
sound
I mean,
of the
if you're going
voice.
for the record sound.
That's right, and it's there. So that's largely to do with the vocal there. And then these machines in here, these are two computers, and they're both running Resolume software, chasing timecode, and actually they're playing auto cue movies, so that when...
Is that what's running on these screens?
That's what you can see here, yeah. So what happens is when we're running a tune, we've got lyrics coming up, and we've got bar counts, and we've got arrangement blocks. So when we have guest performers in, and when we have people who aren't familiar with the show stepping in and doing stuff, they can just glance down and just check that, the change is coming up.
Well, it's fair to say, because the thing is, you did one of these shows like 12 months ago, so it's been quite a lot of time in between shows. So you're just sort of creating... I mean, it seems like everything you're doing is designed to make sure the show goes well for the audience.
Well, the last show...
And you're not kind of going, sorry, folks, we just got to reboot the... no such computer.
Exactly. We don't want to do... I mean, the last show we did, we had a different system. We were running multiple Logic setups. And we did have a hiccup, and the master keyboard we were using to change patches. I built a little kind of keyboard Maestro patch, so I had a keyboard, and if I hit the kind of the program buttons on there, it would close down one session, open up another one.
Right.
But the keyboard spontaneously changed patch. And so I was singing a song, looking down at my auto cue, and our auto cues were coming from the Logic Notes windows, right?
Right.
The marker
So you got different.
and all of a sudden, all these windows opened up. So I thought, okay, this is great. So I had a little chat with the audience, and I could see the mouse moving around and it gradually coming back to life again. So after we did that, we thought, okay,
Never again.
let's not do that again. So that's when we went to the cymatics and decided to build the timecode driven system. So it's touch wood, fairly stable.
One last question about cymatics. So are all of these tracks coming out to front of house individually, or are they submixed in the actual?
No, there's a mixture. So what goes out, what you'll hear from the cymatics out front is an internally mixed balance of some of the sounds.
Right.
And then some of the other stuff is hard out of the radial. So Sympty, the timecode, for example, comes hard out. There's a click track which comes out and gets malted here, and some of these malts and goes off to whoever wants clicks in their headphones and monitors and la-di-da. So
the
we're
cymatics
using
allow
them,
you to do discrete mixes of the tracks, submixes and stuff.
Yeah, and actually with the new firmware update, it's much easier now to actually kind of, while you're playing back, you can move the faders and mute things and just hit save on the fly. You know, kind of like you would hope you could do. But actually, it's only
playback systems have come a long way, because I remember
really,
you always
really
you have to print everything so it'd all be Unity, and it's like, well, that needs to be quieter, so therefore you'd have to reprint the thing to the.
Well, that's it. So with Goldfrapp, you'd have the session running on Logic, going through the Jocos, you know, and when you were happy, you could just hit record on the Jocos and play it out.
Yeah.
But then you'd run into kind of Unity
I'm talking
issues
back then. We were
playback.
using HDR24s, yeah, which you couldn't even edit. You had to, everything had to be real time. You couldn't bounce stems. Oh, anyway, so let's move on. So so this is the keyboard rack. I mean, this isn't obviously the layout, but this is where Gwyll, who's sitting there, gets to hear the front of house.
The reason that he's here for the rehearsals is so he can just balance some of the internal stuff on the PA and just make sure that, because we don't want Phil to have a ton of a different set of faders for every song. We would rather that it's generally working like a rock band, and the extras just kind of come up a couple of channels.
He has to pay attention to the live musicians rather than the playback stuff, right? That's it. So we're coming up onto the stage, and this is where you are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not normally I'm centre stage as you'd expect, but I'm just I'm over in the corner because up till now I've had a laptop here and I've been working on other things. But yeah, my world looks like this.
And you're using TC Electronics to process your vocals.
The G system is just absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it's really good, and the brain for the G system's over actually in my vocal rack, but it's connected by a long Ethernet connection. And it's great, so I can just see all my patch changes happening, and if I want to just jump in and just do something and take over, I can do it. And then at the end of each song, it will switch off the effects, go back to a dead dry mic. So when I'm talking to people, I'm not kind of double.
So is that doing your vocals as well as your?
Doing vocal effects.
Vocal effects, right? Okay, because isn't the G system usually for guitar? Or
Yeah. But I mean, so I used that when I was playing guitar. I played guitar with Susie Sue for a couple of tours, and this was the heart of my system. So normally it's just dead like that. But for example, if you want to go to Let's Dance, whoop, woohoo, and you've got all that,
Yeah.
So and it's nice because I can get it to change. For example, in Ashes to Ashes, da 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 da, but this planet is glow, low, low, low. It'll just pop in, do the long delays, and we get to have all those little details, which you love.
Yeah. Okay, and this is sort of similar replication over here.
So this is Chris's guitar world. Yeah, he's got some really interesting stuff going on there, and actually some of the. I mean, apart from the accuracy of the tones, which is brilliant, I know that Chris has got some tricks up his sleeve, some kind of road-friendly tricks that mean that actually, if we have to go out into foreign parts and we have to kind of hire in backline and we get a kind of variety of different clean amps, actually his world is always going to be the same because he's got emulators and there's MIDI connections and all kinds of stuff there. So I know that Chris has gone fairly deep and researched a lot of that stuff, and Chris's world, Chris is in charge of all that crazy Robert Fripp type stuff. So you're looking at Boys Keep Swinging and Fashion, particularly as when.
Ashes to Ashes, he did. Was it the guitar? Did he do Ashes to Ashes as well?
Pass, you got me. But I mean, it's the bits where I always kind of just have a huge smile on my face of Boys and Fashion, where I can hear Chris letting rip, and the tones are so close.
It's such a varied back catalogue as well, because I mean there must be favourites for different reasons. So you've got a favourite for just the feel that it gives you when you're playing live. Then you've got the favourite that you've got because it was such fun to recreate. I mean, are there any standouts there? I mean, it's like choosing children.
Well, I mean, I love Ashes to Ashes. I love Boys Keep Swinging because that's just one of my favourite ones, and it's such a nice, easy one to sing because it's low Bowie. And so it's not like the early Bowie stuff is quite high Bowie, so it's all up there like that, and that gets quite tiring after a while. So it's not the second part of the set where the later songs are a bit lower. So that's nice, and of course I could just get to sit back and just see these guys letting loose on the guitars, which is brilliant. I love Ashes to Ashes. For me, I like Ashes to Ashes because there's about 4 or 5 different voices he uses in one song. And that's the thing with Bowie. He changes voices all the time.
Well, it's interesting. I was listening to Aladdin Sane because one of the things you've sort of recreated that, haven't you, for this particular gig?
We are, I believe, and according to Mike Garson, the only people who can play that song properly. We got an email from him recently saying, congratulations, that's the best I've heard.
That's Mike Garson, who is...
Mike Garson played the piano on the Aladdin Sane recording, yeah.
But Bowie's voice in that is very affected. It's sort of that wobbly, kind of almost caricature Bowie voice, isn't it?
You see, half the thing about doing this Bowie thing is you think you know what a Bowie record sounds like. For example, Sound and Vision, you imagine that bum, ba-da-bum guitar. You think it's ba-ba-ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-ba-ba-bum. You imagine it's tremolo,
Yeah.
But it's not. other stuff is tremolo, but that guitar is straight. So when you actually go and listen to them, it is always not what you thought it was, without fail. Like Boys Keep Swinging, for example, covered in violins, is strings like a hoedown. Right? Did you know that?
No.
It's all it's like John Cale gone crazy, you know.
Well, that makes sense because he was sort of really tied in with the Velvets and whatnot, wasn't he?
So with Aladdin Sane, actually the vocal sound is motor sensational. It's very, very dry and close up. And then in the chorus, all of a sudden the big reverb arrives and it's ooh, love Aladdin Sane. It all goes very thin. Millions weep a fountain, you know. So the tones just, and in Sound and Vision, you've got that, don't you wonder sometimes?
Yeah, it's very close.
And then it's blue, blue, electric blue. That's the colour of my room. So, you know.
Challenging for you.
It's really good fun. Really good fun.
Well, excuse me, let's move on. So that's the Chris's rig, and this is Bass
So this
World.
this is Joe Short's Bass World, yeah.
Much more analog looking over there, I would say. There's not a lot of programming going on.
There's a lot of hot electricity in this part of the room.
Yeah. That's sort of nice in a way. Everybody comes over here to sort of like to zen out a bit.
Yeah. There's a lot of I feel a lot of Joe here when we're playing live.
So yeah, some good stuff there.
Well, and actually the little boutique Zvex pedals here. Where Joe worked with me on the in Susie's band as well. Played bass with Susie Sue when we toured, and we just fell in love with some of these little Zvex things. And of course, you know, the classics.
Yep. Fantastic. Right, we should move on. I know you've got to get on to rehearse, so we don't want to take up too much of your time.
No problem.
But so now we come back here. I mean, this isn't necessarily, it's not the exact layout. The stage you're going to be on Saturday is a bit bigger,
actually,
isn't it?
Gwil, you know, the keyboards will be up here.
Right, okay.
But actually, if you look over here, I can tell you that this giant hammer is here to come down on whoever makes a mistake.
Tell me what's going on here, because I think this is absolutely brilliant.
Well, so this is, well, you can see there's we've got a bunch of LED screens for this particular production, and James, our guy that's running the front of house visuals for the show, is just running the Resolume output through MadMapper, so we can kind of map it onto these blocks, just so we can get an idea of how it works across the whole stage.
And this is all. So this is the rig here that's synced the SMPTE. So when the songs play, you're looking at what's happening visually behind you. This is a representation of the stage.
That's right, yeah. And so the keyboards will be here, Damien will be here, I'll be here, guitar, bass, backing vocals, saxophone, and then sometimes I'm going to go up here and stand in the front of here.
You're going to do the boxing up there?
Yeah, and that's good. And there's a bunch of other me's doing the same thing at the same time. So there's a whole bunch of me's all synchronised at a couple of points.
That's
And we've got some other little surprise happenings as well throughout the show, which should be good. That's awesome. Yeah, but it's just nice to be able to kind of run it and just check that everything's hitting the points.
Well, I mean, the idea, because obviously the scale of this, you know, I mean, really, considering what you're doing, it's a very compact technical rig. I mean, you know, one big rig and that.
Well, when we first did this, the setup time was 3 days.
Right.
Okay. And then recently we did a gig with the Bootleg Beatles at Caerphilly Castle, and so when we'd rebuilt the racks, changed over to the networking and the timecode driven situation, we managed to get the setup down to 25 minutes. So we're festival ready now.
Right, which is the idea. I mean, because the idea behind this whole project is to kind of become a sort of one of the acts on that circuit and play those level of gigs and be able to do that kind of stuff, right? Because it can be quite. You can make a decent living out of it.
Well,
right?
We want the show to compete at the highest level. You know, not just in terms of Bowie shows, but just as a show anyway.
Yeah.
You know, as something that, you know, even a passing Bowie fan, I think would enjoy the show. You know.
Yeah. Fantastic. So over here to the drums. This looks. Oh no, is there any electronica going on?
There's
here?
a little bit, yeah. I mean, this is you know, a lot of the. We tend to go up to. We haven't gone much past Let's Dance yet, but even on but Sound and Vision, you know, we've got the. There's the.
All right. So what are they? What
This is a little Roland TM2, the most basic one you can get.
So it's just one voice.
Yeah, that's it. So I've got the Let's Dance snare in there. We've got the Sound and Vision snare in there.
It's funny, is it, that the Let's Dance snare, it's like how long it took to... Everybody wanted the Let's Dance snare, and there are all those stories about people who spent days searching through Fairlight albums to libraries to find the Let's Dance snare, and there you have, right there.
Yeah, we got it. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this is, and the thing is, I think, the trick is with doing drum triggers is to always use the real snare drum as the kind of meat and potatoes of the sound, and triggers in the background. So it minimises the machine gun thing, but does give you the character of the song quite well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, when we were doing the Goldfrapp stuff, when the drummer got a chance to let rip and be a drummer rather than kind of following the rhythms on the album, everything breathes a lot more.
Yeah, because we did have a situation where we had the snare drum effects on the playback. But it meant that Damien was tied to doing the
Hold on, we did a fill and there was no effects on it. Or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And we all forget what we're doing sometimes, and it's just really great for him just to be able to play and know that the drum sound's right there. So.
It's interesting, really, this, isn't it? Because so much of music technology generally, even in the studio, it's about a workflow and a work technique, and this is like that on a really massive scale, involving 10 people. I mean, that's any touring rig, though, isn't it? It's like, how can you be the most efficient and the least hassle and the most fault protected?
Yeah, well, it is funny because I mean the system, our system in itself is essentially, comparatively speaking, using today's technology as a kind of base level, it's reasonably simple. The irony is that it gets very complicated when you start building in the fail-safes, because you've got to start paralleling, splitting, switching, and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of grows in complexity to try and keep yourself safe. But essentially, it's a simple setup. Right. I know it doesn't look like it, but it kind of is a simple setup, really. And half the battle is just getting everything locked down in the racks. So when you shake it in a truck for kind of a good few hours, it comes out the same as it went in.
Yeah.
And that rather than kind of having to pull 25 different leads out of a box and plug them in, you've got 3 or 4 big snakes clearly labelled, and you're bum on. And the other thing is that in the racks we've got uninterruptible power supplies in there, so I can go along there and just cut the power, and that whole system will stay running for 10 minutes. While the brownout lasts.
While they save.
Yeah.
Well, and that I guess, so if the power does go, I mean, that's not so much. If the front of house goes,
when you're sound checking and someone just says, "Oh, whoops, sorry," rather than spending 20 minutes having to reboot everything, we're still rocking. So that's great, and that's I learned that from bus-powered interfaces with playback machines with laptops. Is that the fact that if you've got a bus-powered interface and you're running off a MacBook Pro and you've got a brownout, there you are.
That's really it. Everybody's talking about Mac Minis live, which are great and they work really well for mainstay. But the point that you've got UPS built into a laptop.
It's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So you kind of pick up these lessons as you go, and and I think we've arrived at a definitive setup here. I don't really know how we can improve it at the moment.
Well, Saturday night is the first test of this. You've got other gigs coming up in the pipeline.
Actually, it's not. We've tested this rig before. Like I said, the gig at Carefully Castle we did, where we got and that one was great because we had to load in front of another band's kit, and with no space, and we did it, and it all worked great, and it was fine. So we came out of that because the week leading up to that show was tech.
Yeah, I remember speaking to you a couple of times. Yeah, I mean,
so this time we didn't have to do that.
Okay, so we've got full house, tickets are sold, lights. What's the first number?
First number will be Space Oddity at the show.
Wow, going in with the big hitter.
Going in with Space Oddity, segueing nicely into Starman, and then we'll be doing kind of Ziggy, Diamond Dogs era, and then the second half will be some of the later stuff.
Oh, you have to do it in that order because you've got costume changes and stuff. Well,
yeah, but they're kind of we're playing fast and loose with the looks and the songs because we have to balance the kind of the flow of the set with the ability of how I can go and do costume changes because I've got to go off for 5 minutes.
Have you got like those Velcro things that you just whip?
No, you see, no Velcro allowed. That's the point of this. No Velcro costumes. Our costumes would look at home next to the real thing. They've been done absolutely properly.
Right. So you're going for the real deal.
We really are going for it, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Steve, thank you so much.
Well, pleasure to show you around. I'm very proud of our setup.
I can't wait to come. I didn't make it to the last one, but I'm definitely going to be there on Saturday night.
See you at the after party.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.